First of all, thanks to our French comrades for the invitation. Being gathered here today, it's important to keep the bonds of those nations that fought united for a better Europe, whether in 1914 or in 1939, or on so many other occasions. There are moments in history when the population must stop, look around them, and honestly ask themselves what destiny they are accepting for themselves. There are times when nations allow themselves to be dragged along by foreign interests, external slogans, or leaders incapable of defending and representing their country's history with dignity. And there are many other times, like ours, when duty demands clarity and bravery, and Spain is going through one of those hours. Because while our streets lose security, while our farmers disappear, while our young people cannot build families, while our borders are crossed without control and mass immigrations fulfill our country, and while our identity dissolves in the name of the ruthless globalism, the European elites seem to have only one obsession: pushing our peoples towards conflicts that are not ours. And today we must say it firmly, calmly, and with dignity that Spain will not go for war for Israel or for external interests such as the United States. Not for foreign interests, not for geopolitical strategies, dictated from distant offices, not for international pressures, seeking to turn Spain into a mere military instrument serving the needs of the new global order. Spain was not born to be anyone's vassal. Our homeland has too great of a history to accept the role of a political, economic, or military colony. We are the nation that resisted invasions, the nation that evangelized continents, the nation that carried its language and civilization across half the world. We are heirs to Covadonga, Lepanto, Granada, or Sevilla, reconquered Christendom, and centuries of sacrifice to keep an identity alive. And precisely out of respect for that history, we must reject the idea that our children should be sent to die in wars that do not serve the Spanish interest. Our duty is not to spill Spanish blood to satisfy international agendas such as the 2013 agenda. Our duty is to defend Spain, and that means above all protecting our borders, protecting our sovereignty, and protecting our economy, protecting our identity, and protecting Spanish families. Because while military involvement is demanded from us, our neighborhoods deteriorate. While distant wars are financed, our young people emigrate. While Europe debates sanctions and armaments, our farmers are ruined by suicidal policies. While some speak about global conflicts, millions of Spaniards feel they no longer recognize their own cities. Where is the Spain that defended its roots? Where is the Europe that protected its people? Where is the Europe that understood that politics should serve nations rather than destroy them? Today's politicians seem to have forgotten something essential. Nations do not exist to sacrifice themselves for abstract interests. Nations exist to guarantee historical continuity for their roots and for their heritage. And the Spanish people have the right to decide which wars we want to fight or which wars we won't fight. We do not accept having a foreign policy imposed in us based on fear, and we do not accept that loving and defending Spain should be considered a crime. Because loving Spain means refusing to surrender its future to the external actors. Our older generations built this nation through sacrifice, and our generation has the duty to prevent it from being used as a secondary piece in international conflicts where the same people always pay the price. The peoples of Spain. Europe as a whole needs to recover sovereignty. It needs to recover identity. It needs to recover the historical sense that once made it great. And that begins by understanding that we cannot continue acting as a political protectorate for foreign interests. We don't want Europe turning into a battlefield. We want a strong Europe, a Europe conscious of its civilization, a Europe that remembers Athens, Rome, and Paris, but also Santiago, Vienna, Lepanto, and Covadonga. A Europe that once again defends the continuity of its people. And like Dominic Benner said, faced with everything that threatens our identity, we possess a rich memory of who we are. It is up to recover it. And no government has the right to mortgage that future by involving us in conflicts that could drag Europe into an irreversible tragedy. We have seen so many times how this war began. They always presented as inevitable. They are always justified in the name of universal values. Speech is always promised, and in the end, it's always the working classes, humble families, and young men sent to the front who pay the consequences. That is why we must recover an idea that for centuries defined the political greatness of European nations. Sovereignty. Sovereignty to protect our borders. Sovereignty to defend our economy. Sovereignty to preserve our identity. And from that sovereignty, in Spain, we can affirm something simple. Spain has an enemy right across the Mediterranean Sea, Morocco, which is being financed day by day by the enemy. the State of Israel. Morocco is building oil platforms in Spanish waters, being financed by Israel, and at the same time, Israel is also supplying them with military weapons. Our supposed ally and the only democracy in the Middle East is financing those who will lead our destruction, and those who will repress our people. The enemy has always been the same, and we know him, the same who killed Christ, the same who started 2 world wars. Because while ordinary Spaniards ask for security, work, and stability in the country, the elites seem obsessed with global conflicts, abstract ideologies, and agendas that completely ignore their daily reality for people. Spanish nationalism is not born from hatred. It is born from love for a historical continuity. It is born from the will to preserve a nation that has existed for centuries. It is born from understanding that Spain is not a temporary administration, but a historical community built with blood, faith, and Christian culture. And whoever truly loves Spain does not wish to see it destroyed in foreign wars. Our people deserve respect. Precisely for that reason, they must not be used as political instruments for external interests. The Spanish flag deserves dignity. Precisely for that reason, it must not be waved over military operations that do not serve the national interest. Spain must once again look inward. It must rebuild its external strength. It must recover confidence in its identity. Because for too long we have been taught to feel ashamed of our history. We have been told that patriotism was dangerous. We have been told that defending our borders was extremism. We have been told that renouncing our identity was progress. And while Spain weakened culturally, other international actors strengthened their national interest without hesitation. Because nations that forget to protect their own children eventually disappear. And Europe is already going through a deep existential crisis, a demographic crisis, a spiritual crisis, a cultural crisis, an economic crisis, a crisis of identity. Our people, roots, and historical memory is disappearing. And meanwhile, we are asked to sacrifice even more stability in the name of foreign wars, which we say no. The historical mission of our generation is not to die for foreign agendas. The historical mission of our generation is to save Europe. To save it from relativism, chauvinism, to save it from decadence, to save it from the loss of identity that we're seeing, to save it from those who wanted to turn it into a soulless market. And Spain has a special responsibility in that task, because for centuries Spain was Europe's wall. It was the sword of Christendom. It was a bridge between continents. It was a nation of conquerors, saints, artists, and soldiers. And although many wish to reduce it to a guilty caricature of its own history, Spain still possesses historical vocation, the vocation to continue existing. This is why today, in this Forum of Europe, we must raise a clear voice. We want sovereignty, we want a strong and free Europe, we want governments that think first of the people, we want to recover the right of nations to decide their own destiny, and we affirm calmly but firmly, Spain and neither Europe will not go for war for Israel. We won't sacrifice our children for foreign interests. We won't renounce our sovereignty. Because a nation that still remembers who it is will never accept becoming an instrument of others, such as the United States and Israel. And while there remain Europeans capable of defending our history, our identity, and our national dignity, the hope of a Europe that once again belongs to Europeans will remain alone. ¡Viva Cristo Rey! ¡Arriba España! ¡Arriba Europa! ¡Arriba!